Welcome to Let's Play with Everyday Reviews. I'm your host Joey and this is my positive review of Eidos Montreal THIEF, now available for PC and all other current generation gaming platforms. What does the game right and what does the game wrong? Majority of gamers and reviewers named already the many flaws the game suffers from. If you wish to know about this countless mean of flaws, then go and read some of the devastating Thief reviews on Kotaku or Sneaky Bastards. In most Thief reviews it almost sounds like as if the flaws are somewhat game-breaking, but that is just not the case. People are just overreacting or they are too emotionally attached to the original trilogy when it comes to rate the game. The game mechanics work, for the most part, very well. At least I didn't have any endlessly spinning or wall-hogging guards. Should the new Thief game be compared to the old trilogy or rated on its own merit? Let's be honest here, it can't be compared to the first two entries of the series, since it looks like most inspiration can be found in the third game. It feels more like a recreation of the last entry of the series, Deadly Shadows, than the Dark Project or the Metal Age. Deadly Shadows and Thief share many similarities. One example is the return of the city hub in which Garrett sells loot and buys equipment for the next mission. The new hub is even more filled with interactive windows and doors and features much acrobatic jumping, climbing on roofs, bars and ladders. The by series veterans well-known Thief's Highway makes a return too, but this time it is much more present and reachable. The downside to this new hub is that instead of eavesdropping on conversations or gathering information from documents to learn about hidden stashes, Garrett now receives small, how I call them, city missions from his OnlyFans bezel. Every valuable Garrett picks up will magically transform into gold right away. As a result, backtracking and selling loot to the different fences of the city is removed, and that one special amulet locked away into a safe on the first floor of a house, how described in a conversation, almost never exists. Don't get me wrong, the hub is still a place full of fun, exploration and thievery, but many areas I've found and ransacked by free roaming get their level architecture changed once accepting Basso's corresponding city mission. Instead of city missions, why didn't they create more of the most to the old title's upliving client jobs? These client jobs throw you into a from the hub separated small area where you have to steal something from an engineer's house or to solve a maze of puzzles to snatch the big loot and even reward you with statistic screens. This could be a sign of rushed development to make the game arrive on next generation consoles as soon as possible. What if they wouldn't have rushed development for the sake of next generation and gave the designers more time to finish what they wanted to achieve? We might never know. Having these two things from Deadly Shadows and more client jobs back into the hub might have elevated the overall hub experience in the new title. Summa summarum, I never got bored and I still need to find out for what the in the city build obelisks are for. The other example by Thief 4 reminds me on Deadly Shadows is the way how stealth mechanics work. So what mechanics do we got here? The use of shadows, sound and line of sight. The three phases of visibility, pitch black, bright light and maybe not visible in between. Exploited in a blue-yellow colored environment.
I'm not feeling all that well.
Then there is advanced line of sight and dynamic shadows. Garrett can now pick the pockets behind a guard having a conversation face to another, as well as stay hidden in a shadow created by other moving living beings or objects. This grants the from Deadly Shadows familiar feel of moving through the city hub in a good way by learning and soon knowing patrol routes and what shadows have the best effect on the way. What about sound now? I can say that the sound design of Deadly Shadows and even previous titles had a comeback. Thief 4's sound design is a mess. Not only did they remove any different sound creating surfaces, they even toughed up the rules of physics itself. It doesn't matter how many walls are between you and the next person. Sometimes you hear someone talking, almost screaming, directly into your ear, even though the sound source stands in a house countless meters away on the other side of the hub. Some other times you have someone talking to you while you think the person speaks to you through the 3 or more walls between you. Well, I accept the mechanic of modern stealth games that walking crouch all the time eliminates making noise equal on which surface the player moves on, since line of sight became a much bigger factor nowadays. But Thief should live from that kind of stealth mechanic. And the new game just doesn't have enough surfaces that need to be taken care of. There's only broken glass and less than 2 pools of water at the beginning of the game. but there are much more surfaces and even objects already in the game that have no effect, but easily could have attached a fitting sound source to them. Clanky metal gratings, countless pools of water, piles of leaves, and floor tiles, loose standing vases, brooms and buckets. I often passed a guard and mistakenly pushed a broom, which then fell down straight in the guard's direction without to attract him. So why aren't they used? Because of our budget problems? Or the developers didn't find a way to make them work properly? Didn't they want the AI to be even more confused as it already is? What does the game right now? Stealth. Hiding in the shadows and avoiding threats is the most fun part of Thief 4. If you put all your dislikes, emotional attachment and humble opinions aside and give the taffing game a chance. I like playing ghostly, and maybe it is exactly this playstyle the game supports, and makes me feel home and accepting Thief as true Thief experience. This brings me to the level design. It's true, the levels don't feel like places, but overall they are good designed levels. Equal which kind of playstyle you choose, the levels are built so any of it can flawlessly be achieved. Sadly, guards only consist of guards and thugs with swords and crossbows. Long gone are the Hammerids with their gigantic hammers, or tree-laughing pagans with their magic wands, the most consistent enemies in the old trilogy. The lore of the old trilogy is no longer existent, even though there are many references and connections to the old lore. More about that later. There are no giant spiders, monkey men, bug beasts, security robots, walking trees, burricks or even zombies. Well, okay, there are zombies, but they could have been stolen right out of movies like The Descent or I Am Legend. Did I mention that in I Am Legend, degenerated humans are in true vampires in the origin story? Never mind. These critters are used to the dark and force the player later on to rethink his strategy. Light becomes his friend, and shadow becomes a far more dangerous place for the player to be. Once these freaks appeared, I had the greatest and thrilling, stealthy moments of the entire game. It was more about staying out of their line of sight, to learn their patrol patterns, and the excessive use of the crowd slowly key. What about the AI of guards? Well, I wouldn't say the AI is bad, at least the AI is not better than in the original trilogy. This fact very appealed to me, and I can't name it as negative thing. If I consider that in the Dark Project and in the Metal Age, I could stand in the shadows in front of a guard and blackjack him in the face while he was staring at me. The new AI lets you relive this feeling of power and agility. Swooping past them with only some centimeters to spare before you would have touched them is what I was hoping the game to achieve, and it did. Now you can say it's because the AI is stupid, and yes, it is, but how I wished it to be, and more of a personal preference than a negative point. So again, no negative point here. Well, Alfredi, you said the lore of the old trilogy is gone. What exactly does it mean? It means that the old lore is no longer present. Thief 4 feels like as if it plays 300 years into the future, with all new Garrett and Basil. The Baron returned from the war with a different kingdom. Yes, there is a pergament in the old series that mentions this. But as far as I know, it might not even be the old Baron. Following the plot, he and his brother could be descendants of the old Baron. Same goes with Erin. That could be the little girl from the Deadly Shadows ending. The old gods and cults of hammers and pagans are gone. What's left are broken ruins of hammer cathedrals and keyboard libraries. Most of the places can be found in the underground below the city. So it could even be that this new city was built upon the city of the old trilogy. The new created lore seems not to be defined, as if his goal was to keep as many references in there as possible, but denying to name any famous historical remnants. The new lore got no drive, no deep insights, and feels so generic and uninspired. This also affects the story and plot that unfolds while playing the game until its not satisfying finale. Cutscenes feel out of place, dialogues have no meaning. Garrett himself could be any generic superhero, like Batman waiting in his cave, in Garrett's case the old clock tower, for a job from a trusted friend. Should you play the game? Yes, you should, because the gameplay is solid even though it sometimes feels unfinished. Especially if you're a stealth purist, then I certainly say yes. If you're a story purist, then you won't find a good story here. The story is right out shit. How much money should you pay for Thief? Well, I'd say Don't buy it for full price, buy a budget version, or wait for any special edition or director's cut if there will be any. But how I know SquareEnix? They will find a way to sell the same game twice.